Alright, magandang umaga, magandang hapon, magandang gabi kung saan man kayo. Ito po ang Proyekto Pilipino. Ang topic po natin ngayon ay mainit po. Kasi ang topic po natin ngayon ay sugal, sabong, weteng. Kasi alam naman natin na ito'y nababalita ngayon, lalo na dito sa kaso ng mga missing sabongeros na mukhang pinaslang. So, very controversial topic, mainit na topic. But we want to approach this not from a salacious perspective, hindi po dun sa perspective ng pagiging chismoso, kundi from the perspective of history. What does gambling mean to, and what has it meant for Filipinos historically? Ano nga ba yung sabong? Paano tayo nagsimula manood ng sabong at paano tayo nagsimula magsugal sa sabong? And our guest is a returning guest, si Professor Filomeno June Aguilar, who is a professor. Ang formal title po niya is Professor of History sa Ateneo de Manila, where he is also the Assistant Vice President for Research, Creative Work, and Innovation. But I think June Aguilar is one of our most, if not our most important living historian today. Um, and I just wanted to share recently, earlier this year, I had the honor and privilege of reading the citation because the Association for Asian Studies, we awarded him the 2025 Grant Goodman Prize in Philippine Historical Studies. Ito po yung Lifetime Achievement Award ng mga pinakamagagaling na historiador ng Pilipinas. And he is of course one of my mentors, and I'm very proud to call him a mentor, and I was very proud to read the citation for that award. So, alam ko po yung buong CV niya dahil binasa ko yung award na yan, pero titigil na po ako doon. Look him up if you like, and he's also a returning guest. For today, I want him to talk about the history of Sabong and Sugal. Welcome, Dr. Aguilar, Sir June, welcome back to Proyekto Pilipino.
Thank you, Leloy. Sobrang namang introduction yan.
Sabi nga ng mga kabataan, deserve. So actually, the first time we had you here, you were talking about a more recent work, yung work that you were doing on elections. But now I want to bring you back in time dun sa inyong research to your first book. You wrote a book, Clash of Spirits, and that book is all sorts of things. It's about many things. But one of the things it's concerned with is gambling mentality and sabong. Maybe just a kind of personal question first. How did you get interested when you were in grad school in studying gambling and sabong in Philippine society?
Um, at the start, I wasn't really interested in it. Maybe as an academic topic because Clifford Geertz had written on gambling in Bali. But what
Sabong
really,
din yun.
yes, um, deep play, it's called. And it's very well cited in the anthropology literature. But I became interested when I was doing my PhD research in Bacolod, in Negros. Napansin ko, everywhere I go, I could see fighting cocks on the streets. And in the countryside, lalo na yung mga mayayaman, ang dami nilang inaalaga ang fighting cocks. May mga kanya-kanya pang bahay yun, di ba? Yung mga triangular houses, and they're all in one place. And then I noticed that even the young kids would play a sort of um, hindi siya fighting cock because that involves a lot of money, but they would go to the cane fields and they would they would look for insects that they could make them fight. Aalagaan nila ito sa um, aalagaan nila yung what sorts of insects? Let's say they did
Like grasshoppers?
grasshoppers or um, other kinds. Sorry, senior moment. I cannot verbalize it right now. But what they would do is they would put them on a string and then they'd make them fight. So I just noticed that everywhere I went, all over Negros, were all of these different forms of gambling and making animals, insects, or anything else fight for a particular um, while betting on it. Yeah.
Mm.
Father Tito alerted me that it's gagamba. Yes, they make spiders fight and they cultivate them into they make them really hungry until they're ready to fight. And then when they're about to fight, this might be a tip for some people. I think they give them at that time, just before they make them fight, they give them lipovitan.
Kahit yung gagamba, ginaganaan sa lipovitan.
Pinapainom nila ng lipovitan, and then they'd make them fight on this string. So it was just everywhere. Then I recalled, of course, in my growing up in Bicol, I realized that all of these people had fighting cocks, and so that began my journey into studying cockfighting. And in the context of broader Philippine history, I was able to conceptualize gambling as a form of very complicated as encoding or portraying a very complex relationship with the Spanish colonial state of both accepting and rejecting it. Because in the book, I discuss the different rules about gambling, about cockfighting, and how it always give people a 50-50 chance to imagine that they could win over the colonial power.
So, is it a fair statement to say na deeply embedded ang sabong at sugal sa lipunang Pilipino?
Yeah, maaari nating sabihin ito. In fact, that's the real problem because that mentality of trying to make sure that you break the rule without getting caught, essentially. Um, Parang naging ganun yung mentality. If you can take a bet, if you can take a chance, then you can try to break a rule without being found out. And that's how you managed it in that colonial period. And as you might remember in the book, I described how it was for the colonized natives to be found in between two spirit worlds. There would be, on one hand, would be the world of the indigenous spirits sa Tikbalang, and there are sources that would say that the Tikbalang would say, "Oh, ibalik mo yung rosary, ibalik mo yung mga santo mo na yan, kung hindi, we will harm you." On the other hand naman, was another spirit world is represented by the Catholic Church, which said you must renounce all of these indigenous beliefs. So historical sources really suggest that people were caught in between. So how do you try to appease and manage these two spirit worlds? And you're right there in the middle. So again, this is not completely out of my imagination, although a large part of it is. But people were like, if I could give this, if I could give, let's say, this rosary to the Tikbalang without being caught by the Catholic saints, then I'm good. Or if I could give something from the indigenous beliefs and give it over to the Catholic Church, then I'm good. But most people do not want to be caught in between. So they try to appease both sides without being caught by both sides. How is that into gambling? Because it's basically the same kind of idea that you have sapula sa puti, and
Kaya ka sa pareho.
you have a chance that actually the one of them parang represented colonial power, the other cock represented indigenous society. Of course, this is just my reading into all of these symbols. And there is always the possibility that the 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 colonial power could win, but you could also always bet that that the Dihado, the underdogs, and the real underdogs could also win over the colonial power. And as Rizal himself describes in the Noli, kapag nananalo yung underdog, napakalakas ng sigawan sa cockpit. So you don't even have to be there in the
Mm,
cockpit. And there would be huge shouting. What is interesting here is um, that there would always sorry, this is always occurring, the cockfight was always occurring within the approved space of the colonial state. Halimbawa,
mm,
pag linggo o may fiesta, meron talagang part of the celebration, siguro may perya, pero merong cockfighting kasama
mm,
siya. it's integral to a Sunday celebration, or um, it's integral to a fiesta. And so it's always occurring within the space defined by the state. At the same time, meron mga tupada. There are all of these illegal cockfighting outside of the sphere of the colonial state. And these would not be so regulated, but um, I think the rules are the same in the cockfight. The rules would be the same, but um, it's just less expensive in terms of the bets. So
This sounds so familiar kasi ngayon ganun din, 'di ba? Yung state regulated gambling, yung PAGCOR, and then of course yung Hueteng, and a lot of illegal cockfights as we've seen that really link with a kind of criminal underworld that is very juicy for tabloid gossip, of course. Pero nitong panahon na to, we're talking about, talking about the 18th century, maybe even the 17th century, but 18th century, 19th century, you say may state regulation. Ngayon, alam natin, isa sa mga tumututol dun sa state regulation ng gambling or gusto ng completely illegalized gambling, yung Catholic Church. Si Bishop, na binanggit sa akin ni Father Tito na recently, si Bishop Ambo just took a firm stance against yung legalized gambling. Because he's concerned that illegal gambling, particularly online gambling, will have a negative effect on our youth. In the 18th and 19th centuries, ano po yung stance ng simbahan ukol sa legalized gambling, in particular yung legalized sabong?
that's a very interesting question, Leloy, kasi the sources do not specify explicitly whether the Catholic Church was opposed to it. I think by virtue of the fact that every religious festival actually had a cockfighting component, there was de facto approval of cockfighting because this was considered by the colonial state, including the Catholic authorities, as your way of attracting people from the visita, from the outskirts, to come to the centro, to the poblacion, to be able to participate in the mass. Kasi
Yeah.
nga, there were no other forms of entertainment in the past. So
Right.
ito lang yung pinaka-entertainment. And
Mm.
kung yung entertainment will bring them to mass, to go to the church, then there were enough grounds for saying, okay lang ito kasi at
Mm.
least kahit pa paano pumapasok sa simbahan. Yung mga nandun sa malalayong lugar, may pagkakataon ngayon na pumunta rito at mm, pumunta na simbahan at pag-enjoy ng sarili nila sa isang sabong.
Yeah, that's a very good point, no? Lalo na nung 18th century, yung governance ng Spanish sa Pilipinas, napaka-loose. Kahit na sinasabi natin, technically, may mga pare in far-flung areas, many times, visita lang yon. Meaning, bumibisita lang yung pare doon, hindi siya laging nandun. Tapos pag wala siya doon, di talaga nila alam kung ano nangyayari. So, one great way to really draw people to urban centers, yung poblasyon, is through entertainment and fiesta. And kaya rin tayo merong mga fiesta sa mga poblasyon, sa mga syudad natin ngayon. So you're saying that in a sense gambling became part of Philippine society partly because of the nature of colonialism itself, because it colonialism needed gambling.
Yes, colonialism needed so many things. It needed monopolies. That's why it monopolized tobacco.
Uh,
It needed, even gambling was under state monopoly
hmm,
because if you do, if you hold a cockfight outside of the legal arena, then that's bad. You become an outlaw. You become los malhechores, evildoers, outside of the state. You become a fugitive. So within the colonial arena, to be able to run it, they need funds. And
hmm,
here we have to mention that for the longest part, until 1884, people paid tribute, but the tribute actually
hmm.
that the natives paid to the Spanish colonial authorities was very small, very low compared to the tribute paid in the Americas. So napakababa ng
Yes.
tribute. And so they needed to raise funds, especially from the late 18th century, 1780s, na gusto na mag-modernize. Yung Habsburg, gusto nila i-modernize yung kanilang colony. So they needed funds. They wanted to to encourage agricultural production pero hindi masyadong nagtitake off. Now they needed funds, so they needed all of these monopolies,
Mm.
including, of course, um, Juegos Prohibidos, the
Prohibited
games, the
games.
illegal games. Yes, so it had to be under the control of the colonial state,
Mm.
and
Lalo na,
they raised
syempre,
quite.
we're thinking about the early 19th century, wala nang galleon trade.
Yes,
May,
from
may limited
1815.
success, of course, yung tobacco monopoly, but that was in a way comparable to gambling. Parang syntax yung pareho. Minonopolize mo yung tobacco, minonopolize mo yung sugal, meron kang syntax which is ostensibly going to be used for state building. Pero of course, merong sin. And so this idea of syntax for government and for social services, matagal na pala itong logic na ito ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas.
I think the logic has been there for a long, long time, not just in the Philippines, but in other cultures. Basically, para siyang, if you cannot lick them, join them or regulate them or make
Hmm.
money out of them. The idea is this behavior is unstoppable. So, maybe one way to discourage people is by taxing them heavily, which is also good for the state coffers because
Hmm.
lalaki yung kita nila, lalaki yung revenue. So in a sense, it's really is, if you come to think of it, states have always been involved in this very tricky balance of allowing and regulating, controlling something that it considers as evil.
Pero siguro po, panahon pa lang ng mga Kastila, there were some forms of gambling or many forms of gambling na hindi na ma-regulate ng state. That it's nevertheless bred illegality. Maybe not something as salacious as what happened nung pinapatay na sa Bungero or I don't know, baka may ganong example. But what was illegal gambling like under the Spanish?
Illegal gambling is the tupada. If you hold your cockfight outside of the approved cockpit, kasi they will have to pay to the government to be able to do that. So, yung illegal, hindi ka nababayad ng tax. Wala nang
Hmm.
cut yung colonial state. Kasi tupada yun nandun sa illegal. Pero nandito ka sa bayan, sa poblasyon, bibigay ka sa gobyerno. May share. And
Meron na
then
bang...
the
Yeah,
description
go
letter
ahead.
is interesting because you will really find colonial authorities, yung let's say Gobernador Silio together with the parish priest, the cura parroco, they'd all be inside the gambling arena, sharing in the fun and entertainment.
Mhm.
Kasi wala na ngang iba.
I think we need to talk about that, no? Apart from the fact na kumikita yung mga tao, there was something social about the gambling, the cockpit. And people enjoyed themselves in the cockpit and it was, in a way, bahagi nga ng fiesta, bahagi ng poblasyon. There was a civics to the cockpit kahit papano, like it or not.
Yes. And in fact, the cockpit had its own rules, which people honored. So they may not honor the rules outside the cockpit, but inside the cockpit, they are faithful to those rules. One of
Mm.
the rules are, of course, the Cristo, and interestingly called Cristo, the one who collects the bet. And the Cristo actually, he would memorize the bets of the different people as they put the bets, but they don't give the money outright. It's after the fight that he then collects and he remembers all of them. You cannot just say at the start that, oh, I bet for this cock. And then at the end, kung natalo, hindi, yung kabilang cock ang aking pambato. You cannot do that. People will know it is part of the social relations inside the cockpit that you honor your word.
Hmm. Kaya, so in a perverse way, itong idea na yung mga manduruga sa Isabong pinatay at pinalubog sa Lake Taal, they did that because it's a kind of violation of the gambler's honor.
Oh, that one I don't know because I don't know exactly what happened in this case. So it's
Well,
hard.
allegedly yung nangyari daw doon that may mga sabongero na nandaya doon sa sabong, linuto yung result, at nung nandiskubre nung sindikato na nagpapatakbo ng sabong ring, pinatay at pinalubog yung mga katawan sa Lake Taal. I mean,
In
it's
in that
really...
case, in that case, it's just like the mafia or the yakuza or any of these underworld organizations. Kinakailangan sundin mo yung rules, yung usapan, because
Mm.
there is word of honor among thieves. So you
Mm.
must follow this, have your word of honor. Kung nalabag mo yun, edi you suffer the consequence. That is the
Mm.
mentality. I don't know if it is pertains to this case of the missing sabongero, but in general, that is the rule that, you know, there is honor among thieves, there is honor among pirates, and you obeyed, you must follow and obey.
And yung simbolo no nung late 19th century you're saying is this figure the Cristo, the Cristo both sa legal and sa illegal?
The Cristo is the just the bet collector. Siya
Mm.
yung kumukuluhan and he must be honest, just like Cristo. And
Mm.
he must be completely above board and have a very good memory. So siya yung kumukolekta ng bets. Um, pero yung who actually enforces the for instance, may sanction, may nag-violate. Unfortunately, in the sources, I cannot deduce who would actually be the ones na sabihin nila, okay, you do something to that guy. Kasi parang hindi lumalabas yung na crucial issue that somebody would actually dare to contravene the law within
Mm.
the cockpit. Kaya
Mm.
hindi masyadong wala masyadong historical sources nagsasabi na "Ay, ito yung ginawa nila, pinatay nila o binigyan ng parusa, binigyan ng penalty." Walang ganun.
Yung connections ng local politicians to illegal gambling networks na of course na pag-uusapan ngayon, lalo na of course nung Wettingate scandal nung early 2000s, is there a longer history to this?
Mas nakikita ko yun nung tinignan ko na ngayon yung Negros because that was part of the book project looking into Negros haciendas in the late 19th century, after the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s. Makikita natin na again to be able to attract workers because there were very few workers on
Mm.
Negros Island. Karamihan ng workers were drawn from Panay and other neighboring islands. These elites, the planters, who were just emerging elites at that time, would uh, w- would would attract workers by having gambling within the hacienda. So in a sense, makikita natin na yung within the hacienda formation, merong gambling. Within the poblasyon na may gobernadorcillo, nandun din yung gambling. At hindi lang, wala lang tayong datos tungkol sa exact relation between the gobernadorcillo and the gamblers, but we know that they either promote it or tolerate it.
Hmm. Because, yeah, kasi nga, medyo, we think of Negros as a well-established, wealthy society today. Pero in your book, and I really recommend the book, Dr. Guilar shows the origins of a genteel, urbane society, of a Negros elite, yung mga bahay doon, paano ba natayo yung mga bahay doon, at paano nabuo yung class of sugar barons there. And it's very fascinating because the class of sugar barons, what he's saying is apparently we wouldn't have our sugar barons if not for gambling because it was a way to attract workers. Of course, many other reasons why workers and sacadas were attracted to Negros Island, but of course, this the gambling was a part of it, and that's super interesting. And is there evidence, and if you haven't done the research, it's fine. Is there evidence that similar patterns were happening across the Philippines, or is this a kind of, to your mind, a story that's medyo centered on Negros?
I think it happened very much across the Philippines. I don't know about Mindanao, but in the areas colonized by Spain, directly colonized, these would be quite widespread. And in Negros, of course, because they had wealth, but also in parts of Pampanga because they had wealth from export agriculture. The planters themselves were heavy gamblers. And
Hmm.
so they really participated in this. and then it proliferated, began beyond gambling. The ladies had pangingi, the card games, the Spanish card games. That is just very general. I myself grew up in Bicol with the card games that my grandmother played with. And so these were thick stocks of Spanish cards. Um, Everyone played Bangingi. Everyone played. They had different names for it, but for these card games, but they were everywhere. And in fact, one of the earliest concerns of the Malolos government was how do you deal with issues like, or in the even the provincial. I'm thinking about the quote unquote the cantonal government of Negros. Once the Spanish were thrown out, one of the questions was, how do you deal with gambling? How do you deal with a cemetery? How do we continue to generate revenue from them? And they all said,
Mm.
yes, we
Mm.
continue to generate revenue from them. We need
Both
more.
both the cantonal government in Negros, but also the Malolos government, they
I
also
would
want to
think so.
tap into the money.
Yes, I think so. Because you need funds to run a state.
Ayun nga, tapos actually, people forget that the Spanish government was not rich. The Spanish imperial state in the Philippines was not rich, and that's why I guess they got so dependent on it. Lalo na nung late 19th century, maraming yumayaman sa Pilipinas, British trading houses, inquilinos, but actually maybe even a couple of friar orders, but not really the Spanish government. So in a society of wealth, because in the late 19th century, the Philippines was getting quite wealthy in a society of wealth where you have a government that doesn't know how to make money, they'll really find ways to tap into that wealth. And so gambling was a huge way to tap into that wealth. If you think about how poor the Spanish government was in a rich society, that's a kind of irony of the late 19th century. I want to turn now, and you mentioned the
But
Malolos government.
sorry, I have to mention that that was why they had to get rid of tribute, because people were paying, even if they're wealthy, they were paying a fixed amount based on your
Mm,
race. So they had to change it. And finally, in 1884, tribute was abolished. In 1885, the rules for paying your cedulas personales, the cedula was
mm,
instituted, which had a class of like 15 or 16 different categories. And depending on your income, you would pay. So if in the past, a very wealthy person would pay only, let's say 5 pesos, that was already the highest tax based on tribute.
mm,
Then, under the cedulas personales, you would now be paying something like 25 pesos. So, lumaki na yung revenue based
mm.
on the cedula.
But this was already late in the colonial
Yes.
regime. Late in the
Yes.
game na nakahanap
Yes.
sila ng ganung klaseng taxation system, which is very weird. And it does explain why nagkaroon ng addiction to gambling. So, hindi lang mga gamblers ang na-addict sa gambling, ang estado pwede ring ma-addict sa gambling.
They knew it wasn't, it was, they in the sources, the Spanish Madrid here in Manila were very, very conscious that there's so much war around, they need to tap into it. But they were also afraid that if they raise taxes, their my internet is unstable. They were also very conscious that if they raise taxes, people might complain and there might be a revolution. So
Hmm.
they were very, very, they were caught, you know, between these two different hard options. They wanted to raise funds, but were afraid but they were afraid to raise taxes. So in the end, they finally, after a long, long, long deliberation of decades from the 1860s, they took the step only in 1885.
Yeah, and yung takot na yun, of course, we can explain it easily by the fact that the Spanish Empire had already crumbled, and they had lost their American colonies, and they knew na kung ano yung nangyari sa Americas, susunod na yung Pilipinas, kaya praning yung estado ng Espanya ng panahon na to. So it's fascinating. Yung gambling addiction ng estado ng Pilipinas is a function of the state weakness and the state poverty, and yung kapraningan ng Spanish state. Well, let's transition now to another state builder in the Philippines, the next colonial government, yung mga Amerikano. How did the Americans deal with gambling and sabong in the Philippines?
I have not studied this as much as the Spanish period, but my impression is that they basically continued the the policies of the Spanish period, and then they added new forms of gambling like high alay and other kinds of legitimate sources of gambling. Ho- So
I think
stakes came in.
based on naman on my own research naman on yung economic situation ng American states sa Pilipinas, they really want, mga cheapskates yung mga Amerikano eh. So yung Republicans, when they convinced the Congress to invade the Philippines, effectively sabi nila, it won't cost you a lot. I think yung mga Amerikano, based on my own research naman dun sa economic policy ng mga Amerikano, cheapskate sila eh. They wanted colonialism on the cheap. Yung mga Republicans, when they were convincing the Democrats and other people in the US to invade the Philippines, their commitment was, hindi tayo gagasta dito. So, pwede natin silang sakupin, pero hindi tayo gagasta, tayong kikita. Kaya, hindi talaga nila gusto maglagay ng pera sa Pilipinas. Kaya, manipis din yung colonial government. And hindi rin malaki yung pera ng colonial government. Actually, every time magkakaroon ng financial crisis, hirap na hirap mag-raise yung Governor General of the Philippines na Amerikano ng debt ceiling ng Pilipinas kasi binabarat ng Congress of the United States. So, kung ang ganun ang logic, then and even we haven't done as much research on this period, the incentives to encourage gambling remain the same, I would suppose.
That's right. I would think so because then they realize that this is one easy source of revenue. And then you come into the post independence period, post 1946, and then elections. Elections needed lots of funds and they needed to raise money, which is why that was how the politicians of all stripes generated cash through wetting and other forms of gambling.
And then of course, meron tayong mga viewers dito na hindi na naaalala kung ano yung nangyari nung early 2000s nung presidency ni Joseph Estrada. If you could just let our viewers know a little bit what happened then and bakit naging skandalo ang huweteng nung panahon ni Pangulong Estrada.
Hindi ko na maalala, Leloy. Ano lang.
Nagkaroon ng akusasyon na si Pangulong Estrada daw ay involved sa illegal gambling or wetting at kumukuha ng kickback galing sa illegal gambling dahil isang insider ng wetting, si Chavit Singson, ay naging whistleblower at nagkaroon ng impeachment trial dahil doon. At hindi natapos yung impeachment trial pero natanggal sa pwesto si Pangulong Estrada. And so for many of our viewers na siguro too young to remember this period, talagang pinag-uusapan talaga yung weteng at saka yung illegal gambling nung early 2000s nung panahon ni former President Joseph Estrada. And it was a huge scandal, lalo na doon sa mga tao na nanonood ng impeachment trial, na araw-araw nanonood ng impeachment trial, pinapakinggan yung ebidensya kung sangkot ba talaga si Pangulong Estrada sa weteng o hindi. The point here is not to relitigate the trial, but the point here is to show na itong idea of electorally, many politicians wanted or needed to tap into gambling networks. That logic looks like it continued until the 20th century, which actually brings us to the present. I hate to put you
Sorry,
on the
Lelo.
spot. Yes.
Sorry, Lelo. Ang problema lang sa narrative na yon kasi it focuses just on one person. Let's
Yeah.
say Estrada. But the problem is that it is always a very complex social organization.
Yes.
Be able to run wetting, you need people at different levels in different agencies of government, all the way to your poor little runner out in the boondocks, out in the rural areas. It's a complex organization. Yung pinakamahirap na tatakbo from house to house, kokolekta ng taya sa wetting, anong numero ang tatayaan. Imagine that is occurring like from the top of the state of the government all the way to the peripheries. It's a
Um,
very complex web
mm,
involving different layers of people, military, local government officials, all the way to the top. So because you cannot do it by just with just one person. You need a
mm,
whole complex organization. So what I am saying is if you have an illegal game like wetting, it is not just one person involved, it's the whole of society
Yeah. At saka
implicated
yung
in
yung
this.
complex machinery rin na yun na nagpapatakbo ng wetting or illegal gambling. Siguro kung ikaw ay politiko, because complex web siya and effective web siya, naku maglalaway ka rin. Gusto mong gamitin yung network ngayon, gusto mong gamitin yung makina na yon for elections.
Yes, not to raise funds for elections, but all we are saying is in the past, the state was dependent on gambling as a revenue
Yeah.
source. And then in the post-independence period, politicians, because of our kind of electoral system and the kind of society, were dependent and relied on illegal gambling to be able to raise funds for themselves and to be able to run elections.
Mhm. And then it's a so hindi na tayo dapat magugulat na napaka-intertwined talaga ng gambling sa kultura, sa kasaysayan at sa politika ng Pilipinas, gustuin man natin o hindi. May tanong si Father Tito para sa atin, actually for our guest. Sabi ni Father Tito, recently si Bishop Ambongan nanindigan and sabi dapat talaga ang PAGCOR illegalize, hindi na dapat legal under PAGCOR ang online gambling. He took a firm stance and then of course PAGCOR is saying that it's a necessary kind of evil because PAGCOR uses the money for social protection and of course for charity. How do you think we're going to resolve this debate between PAGCOR and CBCP today, and what are the stakes involved in this debate?
Um, I am not so familiar with the current situation, but I can see the fact that the church needs to take a moral stand against gambling. It cannot remain quiet, but it must do more than that. I think the Catholic Church must really speak to its flock and make them realize and even identify who among its own members are involved in illegal gambling because there are many of these Catholics who are involved in this gambling. And if the church is serious about it, it must really take a stand and clean its own house, including those in the laity. Be- because the church, by its nature, must have this prophetic role. So it
Mhm.
must make a stand. Whether it can resolve the issue with government saying that we need this. I think that is lumang tugtugin na yan. The Spanish use it. We need the funds to be able to provide you the services that we extend as a state, as a government. So that is an old argument. One could easily say you can generate sources of revenue from other places. It doesn't have to be from this particular source because of the pernicious consequences.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, bibihira lang tayo magkaroon ng gobyernong mayaman. Kasi nga, yung Spanish government, mahirap. Yung American government, chipipay. Yung post-war government, well, kakagaling sa gera. So, galing sa krisis. Medyo nagkaroon ng slight stability, sabihin na natin late 60s, early 70s, tapos nagkaroon naman ng oil crisis nung 73, tapos nagkaroon ng debt crisis nung 85, 86. So, siguro maiintindihan natin dahil may hirap tong mga gobyerno to, they relied on gambling. But I'm thinking, we haven't had 30 years of economic growth as a state since the time of Rizal, really, continuous economic growth. This is the longest secular economic growth in the history of the Philippines. So yung excuse ng gobyerno to say na wala kaming pera, kailangan naming sugal, maybe it worked in the 19th century, but this government, which is quite rich, medyo mas mahirap na i-justify. That's what I'm thinking.
Mm. Yes, this is no longer a poor state. So we can say that they must look for sources of revenue elsewhere.
Yeah, and so that's a kind of great opportunity, and I want to close there. Maybe I'll just provide a couple of closing statements. But I want to close there. Madalas kasi, and I don't personally hindi ko pa alam kung anong stance ko dito. I was telling Father Tito earlier, hindi ko rin alam kung anong stance ko because alam ko naman to give credit to the people at PAGCOR, marami rin akong alam na natulungan ng PAGCOR. Maraming mahirap na natutulungan ng PAGCOR. But this conversation has been enlightening precisely because it shows na may kasaysayan itong gambling, may kasaysayan yung dependence natin to gambling. But to say that something is embedded in our history and culture is different from saying it will be the same forever. I think political scientists call this path dependency. Hindi tayo necessarily path dependent na dahil ito yung ginawa ng mga Kastila, kailangan natin itong gawin. Part of one of the reasons why we are a Proyecto Filipino is we are constantly evolving and we are changing. We can say that maybe we've had 300 years of this. So what kung 300 years? Kung gusto natin baguhin, kaya natin baguhin. And for those people who are thinking na this is an opportunity to do it, I think it's a great opportunity to do it precisely because the Philippine state, and hirap ang mga Pilipino to admit this, but actually, mayaman na tayo. We're, I think, the 33rd largest economy in the world. Hindi na tayo pipitsugin. And to use the excuse of a pipitsugin to society, kasi yung kailangan natin ng gambling para kumita, it's the excuse of a pipitsugin society. It's time to rethink that given the growth and the confidence we should have as a nation today. And I'll close with that and I'll hand it off to Sir June to
May-
close the episode for us.
Yeah, my only statement is that we would really need the conviction and commitment of the political elites to take a stand against it. Because without the political elites, they really, we cannot do very much. But the political elites will not take a stand against it unless they themselves experience the real pernicious effects of gambling in their lives and in the lives of their family members. What I'm saying is it has to become personalized among them. Imagine a
Mhm.
house, a congresswoman or congressman having a brother or a child hooked into gambling, losing everything, becoming an addict, etc. Pag naging personal na ito, that's when they will act. Unfortunately, it needs to reach that stage where they will personally experience the suffering of people who are hooked into gambling, because
Mm.
we can just talk about it in the abstract. If we do not see individual lives of people who have been ruined by gambling. I mean, yung sabongero na hinahanap ngayon, yung missing sabongeros, para na lang siyang almost like a metaphor. But we need to be able to, and this is the other thing that can be done, is actually, this is gruesome, but to be able to see how can you can people imagine what it is like to become a gambling addict? What
Mhm.
happens in the life of a human being hooked into sabong, hooked into the casino, hooked into wedding?
Mm.
Because our most of us have a concept of gambling as, oh, you're just losing a few pesos here and there. But look at the life of an addict, the trauma that happens, the kind of loss of meaningful existence. I can only use those words, but it needs to be more graphically portrayed. We don't
Mm.
have this narrative circulating. We only have abstract words. We need to show lives that are ruined by it.
That's an amazing place to end because we talked about the broad arc of history, but ultimately nga ang pinag-uusapan natin dito, mga tao. And hopefully habang pinagninilayan natin itong mga issue na to at sinusubaybayan natin yung batas, isipin natin na hindi lang itong social issue na to ay impacts people and impacts a lot of vulnerable people at that. Dahil maraming na-addict sa sugal na hindi naman ganong kayamanan at tinatapon nila yung pera doon. Well, it was a great conversation, Professor June Aguilar of Ateneo de Manila University. And sa mga kaproyekto, I hope you enjoyed this historical take on gambling, which I think allows us to think about it more holistically. Sa ngalan po ni Father Tito Kaluwag, Manolo Quezon at Carlos Santiago, this has been Proyekto Pilipino. Maraming salamat po.